Business owners lose opportunities not because their business is weak, but because their pitch is weak. And I want to talk about this today because I feel that a few tips could really help business owners and entrepreneurs to gain more business. Pitching is so important. You meet people every single day. The way that you communicate and your body language is going to make the whole difference. You might gain or lose a big opportunity by just having a good or a bad pitch. So if you could choose between one or the other, why would you not go for the great pitch? And there are different settings in which you do pitching. And I want to go through those different settings with you so you can have a little bit of a better idea of what you need to do when you are in one of those settings. And I've experienced this myself as well. And I've seen the difference from when I did a good pitch and a bad pitch. So when it comes down to pitching, people and entrepreneurs, obviously business owners, they always know exactly what they want to say. But when they have to talk about it and say it out loud, it feels also almost like a little bit of a freeze. And your brain is actually blocking and you don't really know what to say. And so you start talking and talking and talking about what you do and why you think you are so interesting. But people in front of you are losing you because they're not listening to you anymore. They don't feel that. And it's not because you're not saying something interesting, but it's just because when people don't know you and you talk too much, there is a moment that they look for the exit and they want to go somewhere else and do something different. Why? Because people like to be felt that you feel interesting about them. So be interested about the people that you talk to and not just being interesting. Okay. So there is a difference between those two. And I want to go through those different steps. So obviously, you need to feel comfortable. And to feel comfortable, you need to prepare something. You need to make sure that you're having a clear set of sentences in your mind that you can use and that you can talk to people about. So, but if you don't have a clear statement about your business, if you don't know exactly how you need to hook people into your story, then you might miss the whole point and you lose the opportunity of actually having a great conversation and showing the interest to somebody else. So let me go through those three different ways. The first one is the one-on-one. It's when you go to a network event. When you get into a room, you don't know people, and basically you have to step into a group of people, stand at a table or sit at a table, doesn't matter, but you actually go into a room where you don't know anybody. And so the first thing that you do when you meet a person, you usually say your name, right? And then you probably start saying the question, or you probably start saying what your title is and what you're doing in your business. The first thing that you actually should be doing is showing interest for the other person and say, hey, hi, what's your name? And then this person will probably say his name, right? And then you can ask, well, what are you here for today? Not always starting by what are you doing? Because what are you doing? Yeah, well, then you start talking about business immediately. And it's a great question as well, but it's nice when you can do something a little bit different. So, what are you here for today? Oh, I'm here for this or that. Or my intention is to meet new people and to maybe have a new opportunity in the business. Okay, great. So, what is it that you're looking for? What are you doing? And then you can get again this interest for this person. And I can tell you, when you do this, the other person will feel some kind of recognition for the interest that you show and will return the question to you as well. And that's where you can do your pitch. You can start talking about what you are doing. So start by saying something that is not just, I'm doing this or that, but more in the sense of, well, I'm helping these people doing this because of that with this type of work that you do, a service or the product that you have. It's a totally different way of looking at it. So that's the first thing. That's when you meet one on one. You show interest, right? The second one is when, for example, you are invited to go to a network event as well, but you can do a speed dating. So to get into a speed dating, within the 30 seconds, you need to make your statement. And so, again, if you don't have a clear sentence of what your statement is, you probably will get into too many words, you lose clarity, and you lose the person in front of you. What is important in that one is that you have the same kind of sentence that you do consistently over and over and over. And by doing it more, you get more natural about it as well. So it's not like just something that you have learned from your head and that you're speaking out to the person, but it feels natural and it feels into a flow. And that's one of the best ways to pitch, because you will have had the opportunity to practice and you know exactly the intention that you're here to do this, right? The third one is when you are getting the possibility of being in front of a crowd and you get the stage. And when you get the stage, there again, you need to make sure that in 5 minutes you can present the whole story about your business. Now, there again, your body language is going to be important. You want to actually engage with the people, even if you don't ask a question that requests an answer, because if you are in front of 100 people, for example, or 20 people, you can ask them a question, but in the 5 minutes that you have, you cannot expect to get a response. So basically what you can do is ask a question and pause a little bit so that people can reflect on it and continue. So an important element there is that you start with a hook. A hook means something that you can hook people into your story, something that will trigger them and will stop them by listening to what you have to say. The second one is maybe talking about quickly the problem that you're helping people with, the solution that you have for them, and maybe a proof of yourself that you can talk and do some storytelling about yourself, and finally end with a call to action. What is it that you want the person to do? So that one is a totally different approach than obviously the one-on-one. In this kind of pitching in front of in front of a crowd, what is so important as well is your body language. It's your charisma. It's the way that you look at people. And so if you have a crowd in front of you, don't look at one person all the time. Just start looking around. And even if you don't look exactly in the eyes of the person or the people that sit in front of you, just feel that you are engaged with them. Just make sure that you're, putting your eyes all over the room so that people have the feeling that you look them in the eye. That is a really important element as well. So basically, when looking at those three different stages, there are some universal tips that I can give you here, because those work for all three of those situations in which you would be. And usually it is, like I said, making sure that you're not saying, I would say, I am a 10x business coach. No, I would say, I'm helping entrepreneurs or business owners, and then to overcome their limiting beliefs, to scale up their business. And so I can do this with the butterfly principle. That's one way of doing it. Now, to give you an example and an anecdote, and I thought that was a very interesting one, is that I went once to an event where we sat into a circle and every person could pitch their story. So we had like 45 seconds to do our pitching. And I thought, okay, I want to do this for once in a very creative way, a different way than I usually do. And I'm working with the butterfly principle. So I thought I might as well introduce me as being a butterfly. And so I said, hey, I'm a butterfly, and not just any kind of butterfly. My name is Dominique, and this butterfly here has known what a burnout means and has learned to break out to go for a next level, a transformation in which I earned 30% more revenue in the next coming year, because I've been taking massive action and I've done a lot of good things. And this is what I do now for business owners. I help them to go from one plateau to another. And I do this with the butterfly principle and the 10X methodology. And so afterwards, people came to me and they said, hey, that's intriguing. That's interesting. You're talking about this butterfly in this way. What is it about? Can you tell a little bit more? And I thought, look at this. This is interesting. I created, I did a pitch with a bit of a creative hook to it. something different, that people are triggered to willing to listen more about it because they want to know what it means. And then they come and see you afterwards. So it's maybe a tip I want to give you here as well. Start with a hook that might be a bit more creative than the rest of the people that are there, but I can guarantee you that that is the one that they will remember and that people will feel triggered by, and they want to come and talk to you. So make sure that you practice out loud, because if you practice by just, in your head, it's good as well, but it's never the same as if you say it out loud. Because when you say it out loud, you can hear your voice. You can hear the energy and the tone that you have. You can also hear the words that you use. So take that into account. Practice in front of the mirror. I have given it was not a pitch as such, but I did some keynote in Amsterdam for Global Women's Club. And I practiced that days and days, and I watched myself in the mirror. And even now, when I'm doing my coaching sessions, I even look at the replays of my sessions. Why? Because I see how I look. Do I smile enough? Do I, use my hands enough? Because when you are in front of people, you need to have some kind of body language. Not too much, not too little. You have to find a little bit of a good balance in there. But it's also, and that's maybe tip number 3, it's that it is your energy that also spreads the word. It's not only the words that you're talking, but it's also the way that you bring it forward with your energy. So if you're nervous because you have to stand in front of people, take that kind of nervous energy and, turn it into some positive energy that you can use. I know that when I'm nervous, I prefer to use my arms and, put into this energy of my fingers, and it helps me. So even when I'm in front of somebody and I'm talking, I try to keep my hands a bit of this, height of my chest. And it doesn't have to be a lot of gesture, but a little bit. And that helps. And it shows some kind of energy. And so again, tip number 4, don't use like tons of words. Just use a few words, and even end with a question, an open question, something that the other person can reply to. Obviously, like I said, if it's in a big crowd, if you have more than 5 minutes, you could, because it's always nice when you ask an open question that people can reply to. But if that's not really possible, then you can still question them and leave the pause and then continue, so they have the time to rethink about it. But just make sure that you're using the right amount of words. Don't make too much of it. Give a little bit of time to reflect on what you're saying. Make impact on each word. Sometimes I can talk fast, and then when I hear there is a part of what I'm saying that is important, I slow down a little bit and I put an accent, like a little bit of a pressure on one of the words, so that the crowd that listens to me can understand that that is really somewhere where I want to make an impact, and I want to get the other person to understand how important that part is. So pitching is not just saying something, it's art. It's a way of showing who you are in a different way. It's making sure that people can relate to you. It's making sure that you open up an opportunity to maybe having a business discussion and eventually maybe have a meeting with this person. And it doesn't always have to happen immediately in the moment. I organized last year the growth picnic in my garden, and I'm doing this again this year. And in this growth picnic, I wanted to give people the opportunity to do speed dating, but in a totally different way than they were used to do. I asked them actually to present themselves by presenting them as an animal. So I was the butterfly, but somebody else could say, I'm a lion. And why am I a lion? Because of this and this reason. So it's a different way of presenting yourself, but it's fun, and it's got people to think to think a little bit out of the box. And then I did as well the pitching. So 5 business owners could pitch their story for 5 minutes. I'm doing that again this year. And it's just to give the stage to some business owners to grow into their presence, into their visibility, into their comfort and self-confidence. And I think from that perspective, I give them a chance to learn and to, well, to win something as well, because for somebody that has done the right effort, you celebrate a success, right? And I'm celebrating that by giving something in return. Anyway, if you feel that this is something that you like, if it's content that you think is something that you would like to hear on a weekly basis, I would suggest that you subscribe or that you like this podcast, that you can also share it with some other people, or you can even ring the bell, right? So that you can follow me and get the notifications when a new podcast is coming out. I'm really happy that I can do this. So this is free content, and every free content that you can have, it's a good way to basically learn and grow. I'll see you next time again. Bye for now.